read.
That's not helpful.
That's how my day's gone.
Monday.
Good evening and welcome to the Litchfield's Board of Selectmen's meeting for October 28th. We'll first start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The board is just coming out of a paperwork and manifest review. Just as a reminder, public input will start no earlier than 6:30 this evening. And first up is a review of items for consent. In the consent folder, we have the minutes from October 14th. We have accounts payable in the amount of $58,538.10 and payroll for $48,064.03. And then a land use change tax warrants for map 9 lot 1.2 and lot 1.3. Do I have a motion or?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion to move. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Bork. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 5-0-0. Next up is a request for items for other business. Does there anybody want to add anything to the agenda for tonight?
I have a couple items.
Sure.
I'd like to get an update on a review from the town administrator on the week of use of county prisoners and what they were able to accomplish for the week. I'd like to also understand what the inspection failure entailed for the highway truck. The International failed its inspection. What were the reasons? And we had talked that we were going to do a healthcare review. I just wanted to understand when we were going to be doing that. And I also would like to understand where we are in relationship to the 5% decrease that we had in the budget as a Board of Selectmen goal, and how we ended up the total budget for the year for 2014 against that goal.
Those three items, right?
Should be 4.
Yeah, I didn't put health on my list. I will talk about health under health renewal, because I have that information there.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else have anything else? And Frank, if you get this stuff changed to us by Friday night or Friday morning, we can get it on the agenda and get prepared better. Is it all possible?
Well, the healthcare review I asked several weeks ago for.
And we covered it. We talked about it real briefly.
I don't recollect it.
Okay.
Maybe it was during the meeting I was out, but that's fine.
No.
Comparison of the 5% budget, I got a response back from you saying, you can construct it yourself.
I
And then
said that?
Jason said, well, I could put something together for it. The highway truck, I didn't know until tonight, until I read the bills.
Mm-hmm.
And the prisoner's work week also was a result of reading the bills.
Okay.
So I'd be glad to give it to you as soon as I can get it,
Mm-hmm.
but it appears that I've done that.
It's fine. And I don't recall telling you to construct it yourself, but. All right, anybody else have anything else for other business? Okay, hearing none, we'll do those towards the end. First up is administrative report, new business, 2014 budget reviews.
We'll do revenues. Because
We're projecting it to be up.
because we have talked about all of the expenses and hadn't done revenues. So what I'm looking at this point for revenues is projection of $2,177,840. It's an increase of $34,404 over the MS4. And I use the MS4 as my reference point. That's the document we file in September. That is the, our expected revenues that we actually use for tax rate setting, as opposed to what we guess back in January of the year. notable changes there are, we continue to see an increase in motor vehicle permits. Expect about a $43,000 increase there. Slight increase in the overall income from departments budget. Again, net increase of about 34,000, so not a huge gain. But again, those numbers, the MS4 numbers are numbers based on, a good hard look on where we are in September, projecting out to the year, and sort of my best information by and large for next year is based on a look at where we are now with, a few assumptions baked in one way or the other. I can tell you that we went into the budget expecting revenues of about $2,077,000. And then, as the year progressed, those numbers improved to the $2,143,436, which we used on tax rate setting time. So we picked up, about $65,000 over what we had thought at budget time in revenues. So, which obviously helps come tax rate setting. So, if that's any indication, hopefully we will be somewhere greater than the $2,177,840 I'm projecting next year by the time you actually go to set the tax rate next year. I would rather estimate these conservatively than expect the world and then be shocked.
Okay, any other questions?
The question is dealing with this as an approvable item to send to the budget committee. My understanding was the budget committee has said they don't want to see it. Does that still hold true?
No, they've asked for the revenues. They're interested in seeing, that's part of their that's part of their, kind of when they set their direction, they want to see the revenues, so.
Right, they just don't vote on it.
Yeah, they don't, it's more information, it's more
It's
informational.
an informational item for them.
Right.
Okay.
So, are you good that this is a good set of numbers now?
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
I'd like to get it, I'd like to be able to PDF it and send it over to the budget chair so he can share with the members, if everyone's good with that. And I'm not sure, do we need to take a vote on accepting the numbers you provide? I don't recall if we do or not.
Probably worthwhile to do it.
I'll move. You accept the 2014 budget revenue projections as submitted by the town administrator.
All right, just for the record, the bottom line number of total revenues is $2,177,840. The projected increase of 34 and change increase over last year. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded by Mr. Bork. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 500. So Jason, I'll just take, if this is a good copy that we have here, I'll just PDF it and send it over to the chair of the budget committee tonight, or tomorrow morning when I pick back up again.
Yep.
All right, moving on to other business, or old business, sorry.
Continue to log items as they come in under the 2014 budget, any other adjustments that come through. In the past week or two, we received renewal information for unemployment compensation. Good news there is the base rate is decreasing from $10,987 to $6,318. Workers' comp renewal, the base rate is going up about $4,500, but I don't have any information about the amount of their premium holiday, which has been a big chunk of our savings, so that's an incomplete number at this point. Let's see. We received, you'll have the rest of the detail on the, I got at the end of last week on the, we're going to talk a little bit about health insurance and the increases. Tied into the letter that I got on Friday was also the return of surplus again. So I getting good at calculating that now, so I ran that through the spreadsheet, so I threw those numbers in there.
Jason, if I can stop you there for a second.
Yeah.
I think, why don't we just have the conversation around the health review, because I'm assuming it's related to the budget number, not,
Yeah, I haven't backed into all of the departments, those numbers, any numbers yet for health insurance. But sure, if you want to jump to that, let me just hit one more thing on this, I'll go to that and then.
because I also want to talk about the 5% in this same topic, because I think,
Sure, but we can stay in the budget, that's fine.
Yep.
The second tab on that spreadsheet is where I've been logging the changes that Budget Committee has made to budget so far. I think that, I think the last, between meetings, I know we did parks, they made some reductions in Parks and Rec, and I think emergency, fire, and ambulance were the same night. So, you'll see all of those adjustments there.
I think, yeah, and I think most of the changes were reasonable. I think, they're basing it in some different factors than we were, but the only ones that really concerned me were legal services and, legal services, just because of all the onset legal actions we have coming up in 2014. But we'll have to deal with it.
So anyway, those are logged there. And again, as more information comes in on the changes, I'll continue to add to that list.
Okay.
Basically what I've done so far are things where we were waiting for better numbers. There are some areas with the benefit of 2 or 3 months of experience behind us from when we first compiled these numbers. There are some numbers that, I think working with the department heads, we're going to be able to come back and suggest, some places where you can tighten up some numbers and trim some numbers,
So, is that the last
Yep.
point? So going back to Frank's question around the 2014 budget compared to the 5% goal we set, and Frank, just to clarify, my response to you was the budget and budget would be added to the discussion, which we kind of did talk about it. But you, what I suggested is you could leverage the master 2014 budget and have the numbers because they're all factored in there. I wasn't telling you to do it on your own, I just said it was available to you. And we kind of reviewed this during that last meeting. I thought that addressed the issue, and it apparently did not, so I apologize for that. But my response was not go construct it yourself. It was, the numbers are in that master spreadsheet we've all been looking at. All the increases are there. So we would have been able to figure out by looking at that. So anyway, Jason, going back to 2014, where are we from?
Sure.
I know we've been using the number that we set, the default, and then what really ultimately got approved. Well, the default was what approved. Comparing to the default that we're operating under right now.
No, that's not what we used.
No, I say we've been using the default as a benchmark, and then also what, there's two things that we have. We have the number that we asked for that got declined, and then we're operating under. I know when we talked to the budget committee, we kind of reference what we asked for. So-
I can give you all of those numbers because
I know,
they're
it's all
all
on that
on the
spreadsheet.
summary sheet. So I
Right.
put them all together there so you could see, compare however you want to compare them. What's been approved so far, $5,142,522.
Correct.
The default budget, $4,974,848. So the increase of the proposed budget over the default right now is $167,674. The increase over the proposed budget from 2013 is $97,411.
Just a quick question, when you say the proposed budget, are you saying the proposed budget presented by the budget committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Frank, here's the summary sheet. This is the sheet I was referencing. Everybody has access to it, and the numbers, I've been painfully asking to keep this up to date because it helps me when I talk to the budget committee, and it's been available to the board. That's why I said it's there. I wasn't saying constructed, it's just already there as a reference. Sorry, Jason.
That's all right. And then the last number was where are we with proposed against the 2013 proposed less 5%. And so that increase is $349,666.
Okay.
And just a little bit of context on all of those numbers in increase is, about 75,000 of the increase is due to the personnel admin and hydrant fees.
How much do you have?
About 75,000, just to kind of get you in the ballpark there for, so when you look at kind of, hey, it's 97,000, it's 167,000, there is a starting chunk of that fresh out of the gate that is going to be related to those two items.
So the overage was 300 and what thousand?
349,666, over the 5% less than the 2013 proposed.
Okay. And 75K was the fire hydrant.
That's the combination of personnel, admin, and hydrant. Obviously, when we pin down all of these numbers and see where we are, one of the things that's going to be important is, okay, where are the big chunks of this increase coming from?
Okay.
So, not baked into those numbers at all. If you want to jump over to the listing there, I talk about July health insurance renewal. Health Trust has provided their guaranteed maximum rate, so that's the rate they give us now, the not to exceed rate, because, our prices don't change until July, because that's our renewal time.
Where are you referencing, Jason?
I'm now back for the meeting site, it says July health insurance renewal.
Thank you.
Their guaranteed maximum rate, they're anticipating 8.5% increase. So based on our current enrollments, I did a real quick calculation. I didn't break it all out, but based on our current enrollments, that would be about a $16,000 increase. The good news is that our dental rates are not changing. The bad news is dental is but a small fraction of our overall insurance costs, so.
I thought it was gonna be 6.3.
Yeah, they said across their entire membership, 6.3%. But within our rating group, it's 8.5%. So there are some years where we trend below their overall group rating. There's some years we trend higher. This year, we're trending higher.
I didn't think we had that much sickness on people. I wasn't all operations.
Our group is town employees and the school district. Without the school district, our rates would be higher.
You said that's 8.6, right?
8.5.
8.5.
8.5. So, there are some things, on all of this, our renewal is not until July, so we have some additional time to kind of investigate some other ideas. If you look at the handout or the attachment that came with it, one of the things that they referenced was a small tweak to the plan that changes office copays, and that cuts the increase about in half.
What do we pay now for office visits?
We're on a $5 per dollar per,
And they were suggesting.
and the scenario they showed was 20.
Yeah, that's what.
So, so that's,
That cuts it in
that,
half?
yeah, if you look at kind of the way the numbers break out, that's, if you take current year, you take what that rate would be, you take what our proposed rate would be, it would cut the increase in half. So you'd be at like, what, 4.75, or 4.25. I've invited Scott DeRoche, our benefit advisor from Health Trust. He'll be here on the 18th for our meeting
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
to talk about some of the other options. We've Scott and I have been kicking around various ideas over the past year or so of what other things do they have on the menu, and some of them that look like on their face, hey, maybe this would be great, it would save money. When we actually run the numbers, it didn't save money.
Right.
So just to kind of give everyone a lay of the land for what options are out there, and then we can explore what may be viable and what may not be viable. So
So he's due in on the 18th?
the
you said?
18th, yep.
Okay. Does that help, does that address that question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I will
Sorry,
wait till the 8th.
the 18th? Okay.
18th to see what he's got to say.
And the budget compared to 5% that addressed
Mhm.
first part? Awesome.
All right.
Okay, back on track, well, back to the written agenda.
Yep.
Ambulance collections?
Ambulance collections continues to kind of be that work in progress. I finally was able to connect with Comstar the end of last week to get some background information on ambulance billing. The bills that we get passed through to us are after they've gone through sort of the multiple bills and collection notice process on behalf of Hudson. They do have a company that they work with in some cases where they hand off that actually is a bill collecting company. They said less than half of their clients use the full collection agency services. They are forwarding me that contact for additional information. So I want to sort of gauge what that is and sort of what the perspective there is. To understand a little bit more, and this was context that I hadn't had before either, we just see the bill and wonder how we're doing on it. They collect about 20% of payments owed by uninsured on the full Hudson account, of which, we're part. And they've noted sort of the average client collects between 9 and 10% of the bills from the uninsured. So the pool that they're billing, we're performing better in terms of collecting on those uninsured. They're trying to break out some more specific Litchfield data of that so we can understand, what our subset of the Hudson set is. And so, still looking at reviewing some of those options with some additional context. Hopefully we can put together a plan and how we want to handle some of these write-offs. Karen pulled together for me what our experience has been so far. We've had just under $45,000 billed to us over those 3 years. We've collected of that about 25%, so 11,313. We have about 16,680 that we classify as open. And that would mean things that we don't have any indication yet that those bills won't be paid. We have about 13,400 that we've classed in what we've called abatement needed. And those are ones that we're not going to see those collected in any form or fashion. That's bad address, deceased, any number of what we've determined sort of from looking through the files is those are going to be uncollectible.
A question for you.
Yep.
If the person's deceased, wouldn't we file against their estate?
If they have an estate.
I agree,
Right.
if they have an estate.
Right, exactly. We have at least, I'm thinking of at least one that we flagged there that, there's nothing there. That's sort of what our open issue on all of this is, and our process now is we send a series of letters, we send, certified letter, and so we're sort of at that point now where we need to determine what degree we want to go next on what is largely going to be uncollectible.
Yeah, because if this company's already doing the collection and not getting, they're coming to us because they can't collect it, what's the sense of hiring them again to go collect it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're, the fact that we're seeing that we're collecting 25% of what is being classed as uncollectible, I think is a pretty reasonable return on that. The question just is, how do we want to deal with that remaining balance? And balance kind of the likelihood of collecting on some of these versus kind of the administrative overhead in pursuing it. And that's the balance to look at, So once I get some of the information back from the collection agency and what their services are, I'll be able to kind of make a more informed recommendation back
Okay.
on that.
Does anybody have any questions? Or thoughts around direction,
I
next
would
steps?
hope that we would be able to get more than 25%. That's not a very big amount, percentage really, when you think of it. I mean, these people, they aren't destitute. I mean, they're people that, even if they paid $5 a week, at least, I don't know, I mean, I haven't paid as much attention maybe lately on, but I can remember seeing the names and all, and I know some of them were not maybe as well-to-do as some of the rest of us, but I think that they certainly, I mean, they can go to Foxwood and they can go to all these things and all that. I don't have a chance to do. I guess I could. I wouldn't be that stupid. I mean, and people are taking the ambulance much more than when somebody said, gee, Litchfield should have their own ambulance. Baloney. I can just picture. They take the ambulance to the hospital and then they stay and wait in the emergency room and they take the ambulance back home again. Boy, it's kind of an expensive ride for the town.
It is. Okay. Moving on. Let's just cover the water district refund first, and then we'll go to a non-public, if you don't mind. I mean, not non-public, but public input.
Oh,
I
sure.
figured that would be a short one.
Yep. Water district refund, passed along the article, that, the, dividend that had been being held by Pennachuck that was potentially being paid to Nashua. The Board of Aldermen has directed the, Pennachuck to return $250,000 to the Merrimack Valley Regional Water District for distribution to the communities that spent money on legal fees during the acquisition process.
So what would we be due back? And I believe there's a meeting coming up with the water district. I think Ray had mentioned there was one coming up at some point.
I want to say beginning of November, maybe?
I think the
Yeah.
meeting in November, he would not, that's why he wouldn't be there in the
Yeah.
7th, something like that. Okay. So do we know how much what the estimate is coming back to us?
I think we had ballparked, and Frank, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think we had said between 15 and 20,000,
I think it's more than that. I think
Right.
it's 20 to 25.
20, 25, because I think it was about 5,000 a year. The question just was how many years?
Well, in 2008, we were behind, I think, 2 years
Okay.
in dues. So we made up in that period the 2 years of dues. And I think we've been paying it every year up until somewhere like 2010, 11, give or take.
Yeah, I think 11 was the last year we paid it.
So I'm guessing that, and in fact, that started, I know, at least in 2004, because I was on that board
Mhm.
for 2004, so.
How about those towns that never paid? They aren't getting anything back, are they? That $250,000 that Nashua received is not going to be divided for those towns, even though they used Pennachuck water. They didn't pay that $5,000.
Yeah, well, if they didn't pay anything, I would assume there's nothing to be refunded.
Yeah, you would assume so.
Well, the only thing I would do is I would make damn certain that we speak to our representative and say, look, we paid this much in.
Yep.
We should at least get this much back as compared to other communities, to Pat's point, that haven't paid anything in. And there were some communities that didn't pay anything in.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, can we get a note to Ray and just say this is what we estimate our payments were? And just so he has a number in his head, or a number in front of him when he goes?
I give him a number with an estimate.
Well, why would it be an estimate? We know write checks to do
Why
it, right?
shouldn't we know exactly?
Because you're going into a couple years where our records are a little less than clear.
AKA Mr. Seymour.
When you go back into 7, 8,
All right,
you
well,
know, I'd love to
let's
be
get a
able to
good
trace
let's
it, but
get a
every
good
time I
estimate.
go look for history,
let's
it's
just-
harder
let's get
to
a-
trace.
Let's just
So,
get a good estimate of what we think it should be.
that's why I hesitate.
I mean, if it's $20,000 to $25,000 like Frank indicated or more.
Yep.
Let's just make sure Ray has that.
Yep.
That's what we believe is owed back. What percentage of that we actually get back?
Are we gonna get interest on it?
I doubt that.
Hey,
I have no idea.
somebody's getting the interest. Why shouldn't we? It's our money.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna break for a few moments. We're gonna open the floor for public input. Anybody in the public like to speak to the board of the public, please come forward. Mr. Pascucci, how are you?
Good evening. I guess I don't need to introduce
I
myself.
need your address, yes, for the record.
Chris Pascucci, 12 Colonial Drive. A few things. One is I want to speak to warrant articles last week. I believe it was last meeting, you had a discussion about potential warrant articles. I like the one about asking the public advisory about services. And there's been, somewhat of a debate between various people in town when we hear, or when budgets are presented, that the people of the community and the citizens want and expect these services. And then there's a counterpoint that we don't know that. It's the Board of Selectmen want and expect these services. So I'm glad you're asking it. Please keep that warrant article in. I think it's a good one. Let the people give their opinions. No need to get too complicated. I know, Mr. Brunel, you said, you got to explain to the public how it won't lower, it may not lower the taxes. Well, of course it won't lower the taxes. If you spend a little less money on one thing, you'll spend it on something else. But overall, if you can cut spending for things that people think they could do without, a day here or a few hours, I think that's helpful. Next, about the ambulance, it's, from my opinion, if somebody uses the ambulance, I agree with Ms. Jewett, you got to pay for it. I mean, unless you can't get blood from a stone. So we got to try as hard as we can to get it. I know Mr. Hoke's doing a good job trying to get as much as he can, but there are services out there that you could, when we get to the end and you feel you can't get any more, they'll take it on and they'll just take a percentage once they get it, and their tactics, maybe a little bit stronger, and they might have a little bit more leverage, but, if they don't pay it, the taxpayers have to pay it. I see something on the agenda here about later on, Nightmare New England traffic safety concern. There clearly is a traffic safety concern, but I don't know if there's much this town could do about it. They're here, they do that, that's their business. All we can do is look into the future. That's, commercial brings in a lot of concerns. Commercial sometimes costs a lot of money. We have to make some changes. You have to increase services. So, let's keep that in mind when we're talking about adding new commercial up and down 3A, either on the north or the south side of town, that some of the unintended or intended consequences of it. Finally, I want to talk about the public input. I wasn't here at the meeting, but I know, Mr. Brunel, you spoke to the new way you're going to handle it. It's not before 6:30 on the first one. You're not going to have a second public input unless people are here. And then if they're here, you will decide, or you will allow them to speak, not over 5 minutes, no dialogue unless you want to. It just seems like a Rube Goldberg way to handle this public input issue. It seems a lot easier to have a public input in the beginning and a public input in the end, like just about every other board in town has, because I don't know if you should be awarded with that control and power to allow someone to speak if they're here or not. Because then also, what if you're not here and the vice chair is taking over, and somebody's waiting here and the vice chair will not allow that person to speak, or if somebody else has an objection to allowing somebody to speak. You guys work for the people of this community. I don't see the downside of having a public input at end. If people are here, they will speak, which is basically the same thing that you said. But on the flip side, the way you have it now, if there's no agenda item, how does somebody know to come here if you're not going to announce it? So if you were to announce every meeting that there will be a public input at the end, maybe that would be suitable, but that would be the same as having it on the agenda saying public input. So when I spoke to this last time, I know there was two people, Mr. Brunel and Mr. Lemire, that kind of disagreed with me with this public input at the end thing, allowing people to speak, but it seemed to me the other members here had no problem with it. There's one way to solve this. Again, I don't agree as a citizen in this town that the chairman of this board should have the power and authority to pick and choose who will speak at the end, at your discretion. I would like to see one of these members make a motion to just allow public input at the end and see how the vote goes, and let you guys discuss it, and either the line goes in here or it doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public like to speak? Hearing none, public input is now closed, 6:35. Moving on the agenda. Let's see.
Talk about warrant articles?
Yeah, warrant
All right,
articles.
so, I have been, if you look over the list I've put together, I've been working on these kind of in fits and starts, so some of these are well-written and others are placeholders still. I also tried to break things out in monetary, non-monetary items. So, open ones on the monetary front, town hall roof, human service agencies.
Excuse me,
Old
just one.
Town Hall, right?
No, you said town hall. I thought you said town.
Talent is.
Talent.
Talent Hall.
Okay.
Talent Hall.
And I just want to make that clear
The
because
the Darapon facility. It's
Yes.
called Talent Hall.
somebody's going to say, you just did the roof 2 years ago.
Actually, a year ago, it's only been a year.
It's only been a year, yeah. The roof is generally still fine here, so,
Don't say the word generally neither, please.
Talent Hall roof.
Is that a good number, though? Is the 43,120?
That's based on an estimate we got from, provider for that, given the,
So what do we need to finalize the wording on this and vote on it?
Just, the only thing I wanted to question on this is that you got from a provider, I'm not sure how long ago, but is that,
we got at the end of this summer, so.
excuse me, gonna be good going out towards next summer?
I'll
In
check
other words,
and-
what I'm trying
right,
to understand is if there's an inflation factor that needs to be.
That's not gonna be,
added.
I'll double check and see. I think I think it was asked with a notion of we wouldn't be doing it till next year.
Okay,
No, right, no, but that's a fair question, let me,
Yeah.
If I may.
Yep.
So, did you only go to one provider for that number?
right now we did, because it's, it was the type of roof that it was, because it wasn't a sort of standard, sort of shingle roof.
Okay.
That's right, that's a little. kind of-
Yeah, yeah.
Any idea what type of roof they're proposing to put on it?
The same,
Membrane, right? Is it a
yeah,
membrane?
the
Rubber
same,
membrane?
yeah, the same membrane roof.
Okay, so we need to get better, just validate that.
Yeah, let me just pin that number down. I mean, I would say too that, I want to make sure that that estimate's in the ballpark. But sort of the backside of what you didn't ask, but, is the back end of the question. If this is approved, we would go through and actually solicit more proposals, assuming we can find a couple other providers doing the membrane roofs. Human service agencies. Again, sort of the same level as last year. I threw the chart in. I'm not intending to put the chart in the actual warrant article, but one of the comments, the discussion points we had was kind of giving the voters, particularly deliberative, a better perspective on this is where we are, this is what was asked. So I just dropped that in as a reminder. The first phase of the HVAC system here.
Yep.
The pavement improvement program.
This is the matching dollars.
This is the matching, yeah, and I tried to write it that way to see if the town voted to raise and appropriate the sum of $170,000 for the purpose of road pavement improvement projects. The sum matches the amount expected to be received by the town through New Hampshire DOT Highway Block Grant. It's anticipated these funds will be used towards costs of repairs to Cutler Road and Stark Lane. If you are on your site and you look below where it says compilation of potential warrant articles, hopefully it'll open up a little sub-page for you that has the road plan. What a road agent has done is gone back and tried to show, okay, what happens at $170,000 per year, so just the block grant, and what happens at $340,000 per year. We gave you the theoretical proposal before that showed you we were 26 years out with not getting there. What we did now is we took and said, realistically, based on the scores, what needs to be done and the dollars, this is what would happen.
Yeah, if we had $340,000 based on the plan,
Right.
we'd get Mike and Cutler done.
Right.
And then we'd have some amount of dollars, it looks like. No, I guess not at all.
Yeah, you know, there's a little bit of carry forward and back and forth because
But we
it's
get
not.
those two major roads
It's
done.
not smooth each year on it. And then that would show at the 340 level, adding Stark and Robin for,
So here's my question,
15.
because when I looked at this the other night, I meant to ask Jack, but in the $340,000 plan, if we do the matching dollars and that gets approved, there's two roads there. If we don't do that, and we stay this course, we take our $170,000 block grant. In 2014, we're talking about doing Mike only.
right.
2015, it's Stark.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see Cutler or even Robin. We're-
Robin's
oh,
pushed
down
out to
below,
18.
okay. So Cutler is, we're putting Cutler in there because of the dollar amount. It fits well, but it's still one of the, it's the top 10.
It's still in the low scoring roads. That's where, you know, because part of this exercise is how do you stretch the low scoring roads and the dollars and make them all work, you know?
Yeah, so Cutler was 54, was a 54 in the score.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and what this also shows is in the 340,000 approach, you can do all of the work on Ness and Keg in 1 year. This would be projected in 2016 as opposed to, you know, the project for 2016 and 2017
Would be Ness and
at
Keg A
the
and B.
flat level is Ness and Keg A and B. We would have to we'd break it up into two parts.
Okay.
And then what you'll also see there in the 340,000 plan is that by 17 and 18, you're able to chip away at some of the smaller roads too.
So, Brent, I wasn't there at the budget meeting when this was presented to the budget committee. We must have talked, we talked through this plan, right? We showed them the data and all that. What was their feedback?
Did we do that night? We
It was
didn't do
highway. Highway was the night that I was gone. Right?
Yeah, I don't, did we mention the article or
No,
or
because
simply say there would be coming an article? I can't even recall.
We did the operating budget. We didn't do anything about the warrants.
Well, I know when we talked about it here, we talked about this plan. We showed them that we had the data because they usually ask for the data,
Mhm.
how we're measuring the roads, our score, and what our logic behind it was. And we didn't give them an outlook of the next 5 years based on the 170 only.
I honestly don't remember what we did.
No, I
Well,
don't believe we did.
All right, so I guess, because, you know, this is a huge change.
It's a big
for
number,
everything. So
yeah.
I would ask that we bundle this up, we do a narrative in front of it to help them understand what we're trying to do. Because, yeah, again, it's a $170,000 warrant article that's gonna come forward, and the reason why we're doing it is because we can get this much done versus that much done. Otherwise, we're looking at 25 years, we don't even get all our roads done.
Yeah. But, and that's fine. I mean, we can recreate, I mean, obviously, the spreadsheet,
I
if
just
you
thought
look at
Jack
the
told
other
me he talked
sheets,
about it, yeah.
it has the other pieces. The conversation we had last
Yeah,
month.
no, I think what I'm asking is to get Jack and yourself to write a narrative so that I can share and extend it to the budget committee, and we can kind of have it in our meeting discussion area, kind of talk about, here's one of the warrants that's coming up, because they're anxious to see what the warrants look like.
Yeah.
Right.
And, I did say that we would have the majority of the warrants, at least if not final draft by their 14th meeting. So, I'm hoping we can do that.
So,
Yep.
just to make sure, the warrant article you're proposing is for $170,000 additional dollars to be added to this.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're gonna show them a plan that goes out to 2018, which has another $170,000 taken each and every year for the next 4 years.
Right, but we're only looking for $2,014 today.
Right.
The hope would be that we can figure out how to fund it going forward, right?
Well, I think that you need to make sure that it's clear to the people
Sure.
that going forward, if they're gonna adopt the plan, beyond next year, there's an additional 170 for each year going
Mhm.
forward.
Yep.
Now, the question is, should that be one warrant article going forward with $170,000 to be appropriated for each of those years, or should you go to the people each and every year with a warrant article?
See, I thought about that myself, and I just think that if we go to it and say this will be a reoccurring for the next 10 years, it may, create sticker shock. I think even the $107,000 in addition is gonna create sticker shock. I think if we give them, every year they can say, yeah, this is okay, we can get it done. And continue to tell them, because I think at the end of the day, they see the money go in there, they may question whether or not we even get the work done. If we can show a continuing history, and obviously the department has shown that they can do this and manage these size projects, but asking for another additional $170,000 off the top, I think going back every year is not a bad idea. I mean, I would rather know how we can plan going forward, but I don't think we can ask for a reoccurring $170,000 for 5 to 10 years.
I just don't want to lay out there that you're gonna get all this work done, and everybody's gonna make an assumption it's $170,000, and that's the end of the deal.
Oh, yeah, no, I think we gotta be very clear about it, especially when we present the warrant and we talk about it.
That if we continue to fund it at this level
Right.
each year, we would be able to
By
get to this point.
2018, yeah.
Right.
The legislature might cut that down too. They might
Well,
not.
their $170,000 we get today could definitely go down, but we would continue doing a matching program at some point, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, and if it changes dramatically, I mean, I think, up or down, the question is, okay, we've shown you, this is what you can get at 5 years at 170. We know that, it could go down. In theory, it could go up. Remember, there was a brief period last year when there was a possibility when an increase in the gas tax was being discussed that it showed more money coming for block grant.
right.
So then, that leads back to the question that, a future board would have to decide, do you want to keep matching it, or do you want to offset it and say, if you're getting a 70 in new block grant, we'll ask the voters for 100 and fund it, benchmark the 340 level as opposed to benchmarking the match. Because, if you create the expectation of benchmarking the match, you could, push the number higher.
I-
Now,
I also think that there's gotta be some explanation as to how these streets were chosen, because if you look at the total plan that goes out to 2025, and Jack has it listed, or Jason has it listed, whoever, as showing that we're getting $340,000 a year, or
right.
if that's the purchase. Underwood, as an example, doesn't get done. But if you go back to the proposed plan, Underwood is listed on here, where is it? In 2017. Why is it being delayed for another 8 years on one plan, but in this plan it's coming in? I'm assuming it's just to make it fit from a financial perspective to expend the money.
Well, it also scored 68%.
Yeah,
on score,
the
so-
sample that I put together that showed this is, if you had this amount of money each year out to 2025, was based purely on, let me try to take the lowest score in the dollars and shoehorn as much in as I can on that list to get it done. That 20-year plan, 13-year plan did not have a sophisticated analysis of every one of those roads. The scores we have, when you look at the data sheet, is we have an overall score on some of these that says, we may have a score that's, 57. That's global for the whole street. We may have parts of that street that are 25 and parts of it that are 75. So, what it takes and that's where sort of with that data in hand, that's where the road agent looked at that data and looked at the individual roads and said, okay, this is what makes sense realistically in a 5-year plan. Mine was purely a mathematical exercise based on that score list.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think that's Frank's original point too, is that we just gotta be very specific about why we're doing what we're doing, how we're doing it, how we came up with the numbers.
And the streets.
In the streets, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the streets were, like you said, initially were a combination of just score and price. Now this is more road agent making some recommendations based on score and what he knows about the overall history of that road. So, okay. Like I said, I don't know when we can get that, but like I said, I'd try to do the narrative.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've covered a lot of the narrative, so I have most of the pieces of it. I can stitch it together, so I wouldn't be too concerned about
Yeah,
that.
let's just make sure Jack's on board too. I think the other one is the warrant to hire MRI or some other company. I know we were looking for a price estimate from MRI.
Yeah, I talked to MRI, they're getting
I
their
would just
proposal.
like to bring up this as more around discussion. So, I know when Frank proposed, and Frank, if I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong. When Frank proposed the warrant, it was based on the fact somehow to get control over overtime. So I opened up the MRI report from 2008, and I looked at the recommendations made back then. And I don't see how another report, again, my opinion, how another report is going to tell us to do something different when we haven't even adopted all the changes we recommended in the 2008 report. As of right now, we're still two full-time officers short, and we're 4 part-time officers short. For the amount of money we spend in overtime and what we're getting for the coverage, yeah, these guys are a little, probably stressed out a little bit as far as covering a lot of shifts. But if we don't hire 2 more full-timers, and I'm not saying we're doing that, I'm just saying the plan says we need to hire 2 more full-timers. I don't see the MRA report, another report from any other vendor coming back and saying anything different, because it's all based on, if I understand the methodology, it's based on citizens versus some ratio per officer to do a 7x24, 2 officers per shift, for 3 shifts. The calculation's all there. I'm not sure how that would change. And I'm just saying, to me, it's like, if we're not willing, I think I made this discussion point when we brought it up initially, if we're unwilling to adhere to the plan we already have, spending more money to have the same plan come back, same potential results to come back around staffing, I just don't see that's a good value to the town to pay. And again, I don't know how the dollars are. Maybe it's only a couple $1,000s to the report, but it's still a couple $1,000s. And I'm not advocating hiring any officers based on this plan. I think the department's running reasonably well for our staffing. Yeah, we probably should get some more part-timers to kind of fill in some more of the cracks. But that's only when they're available, right? Anyway, it's my thought. I don't know if anybody else had looked at the MRI report from last year. I did bring it up the last meeting. I know Frank's probably reviewed it and read it a couple different times. I just don't know how another report's gonna give us anything different.
Have we ran the numbers? Like, if we were to bring part-timers in, would it change the bottom line for the overtime?
The suggestion had been made, Kevin, in the past, to try and get part-timers who can fill in during the work week. The way we hire part-timers today, most of the part-timers that we hire today, with a couple exceptions, I think one of those is like the SRO or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, we have two that are available through the day, and then we have 2 that are.
The part-timers that we need are part-timers who can jump on, call in at odd shifts and substitute in.
Right.
The problem is that a lot of the people who are part-timers as well, or some of them are, I'm gonna call them professional people who have a full-time job and can't do that, because if they get called in, they've gotta give up their full-time work or whatever. I'm thinking of one officer in particular who, he just can't do that. So if we're gonna minimize part-time, overtime, there's a couple ways to do it. One, look at the schedule that people are on now and see if it makes sense to change the schedule. There's 2 schedules that are approved for the offices. One schedule is 5/8. Okay, the other schedule is 4/10s. Is one schedule more efficient than the other? I don't know the answer to that. That's one of the things that I'm trying to get out of this, is understanding what's the most efficient schedule for the town to save overtime. The other thing, to me, would make sense is, can we find officers on a part-time basis, as I suggested before, who could fill in on that odd time and not have to worry about that? When I've asked that question before, the response has been generally that they don't exist. So,
Yeah, I think the challenge with part-timers is that if you get a part-time retiree who's already trained and certified, they get off the floor and they start running right away. There's a little bit of training for department level training. If you find a part-timer or somebody it's a second job, to your point, probably less flexible, there's a whole bunch of training has to happen before they even can ride a car by themselves. So I don't, I have to defer to the department saying they can't find part-timers that are qualified to operate in that fashion or available during the day. I just, based on the report and based on the numbers we even use to calculate the budget, the hours are what the hours are, right? There's 2,920 hours a day per officer that's, per shift slot that has to get covered. and that's how we based our budget on. It's all in the MRI report. I guess, before we decide to go forward and have another report done, I suggest that we take a look, if they haven't read the MRI report, read the MRI report. Because I think it supports what you're saying. We should hire more part-timers. If we can't find qualified part-timers, that's another issue.
Well, the other issue,
But our part-time hours also been cut too, Frank, so the budget committee believes we're only authorized to have 4, I believe, is what the number is. According to this report, we're authorized to have 8, which I think is the number we actually say we can have. So we should have a bucket of money that will cover 8 part-timers. We don't have enough money to cover 8 part-timers.
my personal recommendation is that the budget committee can say what they want about part-timers and how many we have and everything else, but it's the decision of the Board of Selectmen to hire part-timers if we need them.
Yeah.
And my point is that if we're gonna budget for a certain number of hours of part-timers, whether I fill it with 1 person, fill it with 20 people, fill it with 50 people, is the decision of the board, not the budget committee.
Well, it's also the decision of the chief, and
Yes, I agree with
yeah,
that.
it's the chief's decision how he uses those assignments, and that's what he defines them as assignments. The assignments today, the money that's funded in the part-time line is a line for folks who are filling those assignments. There's no room for additional part-timers unless they're just purely there to cover a shift and avoid the overtime dollars, right? But I believe the contract says the shift will be offered to the union first, right? No?
No.
Okay. All right.
No, I mean,
I thought it was always to the junior guys first, and if they didn't want it, it went all the way downhill.
Well, they're all union, so
Right.
they're all bargaining, so let's be clear on
Yeah,
that.
that's true. I always forget the part-timers are union too.
yeah, I think the bigger, the bigger challenge is always going to be the pool of qualified part-timers is very small.
Qualified.
So,
Right, yeah, I mean, if you can find somebody and the setup is right, I think it would make sense, and I think, you'd see a recommendation from the chief for that. And obviously, if it comes up, you navigate within the pool you have, and also to get back to the prior point, if there are those shifts that can be covered from overtime, let's say you have your current budget and you move forward, and let's say a wonderful opportunity falls into our lap next March, you're covering that in theory by, you're trading off what you budgeted overtime dollars, and, you're spending a third of that on a part-time officer. So you're just juggling between those 2 lines.
Right.
It's just, your best bet is gonna be a retiree. They're fewer and far between. And quite honestly, more police retirees are finding better work outside of the public sector, and the public sector in New Hampshire. The incentives are for them to go elsewhere. So, I mean, that's kind of the battle we're up against, in finding them. And, I think you want to think long and hard about adding sort of the part-timers that are not retiree or not experienced retired officers. Many departments are turning away from them because there is much less training that comes into it and much less ongoing training.
So my point was not to duplicate the MRI report, because the MRI report basically takes, here's the number of citizens in town, here's
Yeah,
what the
it
town's
uses
gonna
the
grow,
factor, yeah.
and you need 3.5 police officers per 1,000 citizens, or, I'm making up numbers now, of course.
It's 1.5 per 1,000, I
Right.
think, with the report there, yeah.
And then you just divide the number by those numbers into the population, that tells you how many officers you have. I'm looking to try and come out of it with a strategy as to how this board can take some action along with the chief of reducing the overtime.
Well, I think it's important to also note that the report also did it 2 factors. 2 factors, there's the FBI kind of recommendation for coverage per 1,000 employees, and then there also was just the computer math of how many hours I have to cover to have 2 patrol, 3 shifts, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and that's the 2920 hours times whatever. Yeah, that's the math they use to come up with a number. And again, back to my original point was, they say this report says that we need 10 patrol officers to cover our shifts every day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, and we don't have the work. We don't have that. We have 7. We have 7 patrol officers. Right. The sergeants also do patrol also during their shift, but the predominant amount of their work they're doing follow-up and report checking and all this other administrative stuff has to happen too in the day-to-day work. So if you think, I mean, if everyone thinks that they're gonna get a different result, then we go forward and ask the people. I just think that people are gonna remember that we did this report and we haven't even adhered to half the stuff in it. I wouldn't say half the stuff, we've got a fair amount of everything done, but we don't have the staff that were already recommended. And again, I'm not advocating we get more staff, I'm just saying that the report may not be any different. And the cost of the overtime is, what do we say, 75,000? Bring a new employee on and train him and all that stuff is a whole lot more than the overtime line is gonna be. And if we do some comparison, I think I saw a report, was it Ware, I think it was? I think it was Ware, I think 'cause the chief had that report. With their overtime budget's a whole lot worse than ours.
Bad town to select.
I know.
I'll just leave it at
Yeah, that's fine. I agree. There were some town comparisons in our MRI report back in 2008. I'm not sure how much those numbers are legit, but today. But anyway,
There has been more activity this year, probably, than all
Our-
the time I've been on the board.
yeah, our call volume is, I want to say, correct me, I think it was like, typical average for the year was like 21,000 calls. This year, before September was even done, we had 23,000 calls, or something like that. It was some number like that. I may be off. I could be off by a little. I think that's what it sounds like. So yes, you're right. I mean, call volume has gone up. A lot of long-term cases have happened. So, all right. So again,
When
the
I
board
get the
decide, but-
proposal, when I get the proposal in hand, you'll get a sort of a sense of sort of what the thought, you know, I mean, my conversation was, hey, here's where we are, here's what we're looking at. It'll give you a real number to kind of hang the rest of this conversation on, you know, so you can look at, you know, do we see the benefit of making this investment? So,
I have to agree with John on some of the things that he said anyway. I think that we spend a lot of money, just like that survey on that road years ago, 26,000. It didn't sound like much, but you know what? I could drive around and say, oh yeah, this road is really bad. I'm not an engineer, but I certainly would know. And it might have been down at the very bottom of the list. And I thought, holy cow, how did they get that? You know, so I just think that you can spend an awful lot on surveys, and I think common sense and taking time, two or three of you went, us went together and kind of looked at it with the road agent and all, and did things like that. I think that we could gain, but I do wish that we could hire more part-timers. I don't know. I'm wondering if our pay scale for our part-timers is, not that I want to raise everything up, you know me, but I think that, I don't know, is our pay scale even with other towns for part-timers?
22 an hour.
yeah, I don't think pay is the issue for part-timers. I mean, it's mainly just sort of
It's a time
do you want a
factor.
day job and then do you want a night job being a police officer, spend hours of training and, the career, the financial career path that makes sense is to be a full-time officer. To be a part-time officer is, it's a demanding decision to make, for something that is a limited part-time position.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Any other discussion on that warrant? All right, let's move on to the non-monetary.
non-monetary, the first one is the allowing on-premise licensees for liquor sales to sell until 2 a.m. is authorized by RSA 179-17-2B. I threw a note over on the side that is in part for you and in part for me to think about a little bit and ask some more questions. The RSA allows this under conditions authorized by the legislative body of the city or town in which the premises are located, if the legislative body adopts an ordinance authorizing such sales. So of course, this prompts, the question, are there conditions? Does this need to be expanded into an ordinance? And what do we mean by that? So, I guess the thought on, anybody have any thoughts on conditions? The ordinance piece I can throw council's way. I did follow up. I think one of the questions was, police chief have any concern? Police chief had no concern, an additional hour is not gonna make a,
He knows he'll be out there anyway.
right, you know, I mean, you know, if you're, you know, if you're driving under the influence, they'll get you at 5 PM, 6 PM, 10
2
PM,
a.m.,
1 AM, or 2 AM, so that doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Next few are italics because I just haven't tackled writing them yet. The budget cap, the capping the land acquisition fund, and then the reduction of town hall services.
Well, because they're the same we reviewed last time, when will you be able to get a cut at these? Will you be able to get
I'm
more?
gonna chip away at a few more of them. I mean, each week I'm trying to add, I'll add a few more to them. I mean, I put more of my emphasis where I could on some of the monetary ones because those are the ones we need to make sure we get to the budget committee.
Correct, yep. Well, on number 4, the non-binding determined public sentiment around reduction of town hall services, I just would like to change the word from town hall to town-wide services, except for police and fire, is what I thought we talked about last time.
We did.
So,
You want? Yeah, why do we need exempt police?
no, it was meant to be police and fire, it wasn't.
Okay.
It just
But,
says
well,
government.
what I wanted to make sure was that people didn't think it was just what goes on in this town hall. It really has to be town-wide services that are non-public safety related. Right? It could be service window hours, it could be dump time, it could be, whatever. Yes, the roads will still get plowed, and yes, the sand will go out, and yes, the police and fire will respond. I'm not talking about doing anything like that. I'm assuming it doesn't change the intent, right, Frank?
That's whatever, that's fine.
I mean, if you want to take a stab at it, then remove the except police and fire and leave it that way, townwide services, period. But I'm not sure, with the influx of calls and different things going on, that we would actually benefit the town by doing that.
Let me try to put something together. I mean, and obviously you can put stuff in, take stuff out, but, did I interpreted where we ended up on the, looking into the traffic light issue, for page 102 as a direction to put forward a plan to study the costs and implications. Am I correct that we ended up with no money attached to it for the coming year? On that?
That's my recollection.
Okay,
It's not even in our town, I don't
Again,
even
I
know.
was just gonna say that, it's
Wh-
not even
why
in
would-
our town. I don't even know why we have it on here personally, but.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to
Yeah,
be here,
for
but
this,
why would the town be putting a light up there? That's a state road.
And it's in another town on top of it.
Right.
I'm against it.
We have no jurisdiction putting a traffic signal there.
First off, the decision of the board last week was or last meeting, I should say, was not necessarily page and 102, but was to look at options that are available to the town, which would include potentially running not Cutler, but
Albuquerque straight out.
Albuquerque
Right, okay.
through and all those different options. So in other words, to try and do something that would minimize the impact to Litchfield residents of the light, of
I-
the lack of light on 102. And
I would agree that a light is needed there. I would actively support requesting the state put one there.
I think we already-
So
yeah, but-
let me beat a dead horse, and that is, the state will not put one there. The state DOT says one is not needed there. The state DOT says speed limits are appropriately set there. So we're stuck in a situation where nothing can be done there. Okay? Hudson is not gonna do it. Hudson, if you talk to Hudson, their West Road was a major issue for the town, and they had to put in additional money to pay to have West Road intersection done. And they were fortunate in that they were able to exact money from the Irving gas station that was going in across the street to try and include that as part of their cost for renovation of that intersection.
Now they're widening the end of West Road.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see us spending any town money in a place that we don't even have jurisdiction.
Right.
It-
The point of this was
It's
not,
dangerous.
as I thought I said, maybe I didn't, but, was to address the issue somehow of the intersection of Page Road and 102. There's gotta be something done there. There's been numerous accidents there, and there's been a couple people killed there. And I guess the question I'm saying is, you know, let's see what the sentiment is of the voters to having us take a look at, seeing whether we can come up with some type of a plan.
Yeah, the question is, do we word it the way we're wording it?
Well, and this is where,
It's on
hearing what's
page
being
102.
said, I think it actually is more realistic with, the implications of installation of a stoplight at an intersection on Route 102. This gets back to the, okay, if we can't make Page work because the traffic isn't there, and oh, by the way, it's not in our town, is there any strategy we can push there, or do we need to look at a change in Cutler, driving through Albuquerque? Is the renewed interest in Hudson of creating, some portion of the circumferential highway piece give us an opportunity at an intersection there, on their end of that, to pick something up on our end? So maybe leave out, well, let's not make it Page be the answer, but the underlying issue of, can we get a southern signalized intersection somewhere on 102? So you can get out of town through a controlled intersection on the 102 other than 3A. Does that sound reasonable if we can cobble something together like
That
that?
sounds like the direction we're trying to, that's the direction we want, right?
I agree. I just think, again, it's in another town, so, and Frank just touched on it. The state's not gonna do
Yeah.
anything, Hudson's not gonna do anything. I just don't think it's, going the route that you just mentioned, absolutely.
Okay.
It is the most dangerous exit from Litchfield. There's no doubt about it. People complain about Page Road down onto 3A. That's not nearly as bad. You've got so many other places going out on there.
And I agree with you, Pat, but there's 3 other ways out of this town. You got West Road, you got Cutler Road, and you got 3A. So if people don't like that intersection, avoid it, and again, it's in another town. It's,
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't go, it's very rare I go that way for that simple
Yeah,
reason.
you go Corning Road, you go Hillcrest
There's
Road.
many other ways
Pine
out of the
Road is
town.
dangerous too.
Yeah, except now one of those ways is filled with construction of its own, so
Right, correct.
that's temporary though.
Is there any reason, just as a question to the chair, why we're going over these again and not waiting until Jason gets them?
No, I was trying to stop the dialogue at the end of it when we got to the italicized side, so unless there's any other comments around it, we can proceed on the agenda.
Okay.
So,
The only other one that I want to bring you back to for a moment, we left under the to be determined, because we had sort of this comment of revisit the elderly exemptions, and you had asked for updated data. And if you go again back to the site, you'll see that we updated the data for the same bucket of towns we looked at for 2010 with 2012 data. And the numbers actually across the pool didn't change very much. So what you'll see is that the income limits for the 65 to 74 age group were at 50,000. The median across the other towns is 60,000. 75 to 79 were at 80. The median's at 80. 80 plus were at 125,000. The median's at 125,000. Oh, sorry, that's not the income. That's the exemption amount. The income limits, single, we said 30,000, median's 30. Married, we're at 45, the median's 43,500, and we continue to be the outlier for single assets and married assets. The medians there are 90,000, and our asset limit is 300,000.
I think this board should adopt the current system that the town of Pelham uses today.
Is that?
want to enlighten us?
No. Yeah, I shared that article. I shared that article as well on the site. Pelham is revisiting theirs. They have some of the more generous levels in the state.
Okay.
There's people beating the door down to move to Hudson, to Pelham.
Yeah,
Oh my God, 500,000.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah. So.
All right, so no action then, I guess?
I mean, well, you know, the issues are, our asset, our asset limits are the outliers. What that means is we have people now who are qualifying for the elderly exemption.
They'd have $300,000.
Right, who based on, you know, where many of our neighbors and sort of our benchmark population group are, would not qualify. 300,000, I think, comes from a very well-intentioned effort when this article came in, that I don't think it was realized that your home, your primary home, is excluded from that calculation.
Oh,
Maybe
that's,
it wasn't.
You know, no, that's been part of the law. And I think somebody missed that point, so they called it 300, because we don't want to, you know, exclude your primary home. 300,000 lets you to have a primary home here as well as one in Florida.
$300,000 doesn't go as far as it used to.
you know, they got a nice $300,000 home in Florida, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would buy the nice home in Florida. Well, I mean, I only half jokingly say that,
So,
because I know we have a couple people
Who
who
brought the
have.
warrant? Frank, did you bring that warrant forward?
Yes, I did.
And the reason I asked you is that just, did you have a number? Because I mean, it seems like we were in agreement that 300,000 is too
My
much. but-
explanation, which I'll state again, is that in 2009, if I'm not mistaken with the year, this warrant article came through, okay, as a petition warrant article to the Board of Selectmen, and it passed, okay? Unfortunately, I do believe Jason is correct that the people who put forward the petition warrant article were concerned that we were excluding people's values of their homes in their assets for calculating their exemption. And the warrant article passed, it was updated in what, 10 or 11 or something like that, to bring it in line, because DRA said it was an illegal warrant, although we were bound to it or whatever. Anyways, the point I'm making is that in those days, a home value was, well, in Litchfield, close to 250 in average home value, hence the $300,000. Does it make sense to carry it today? I don't think so. What the right number is, I don't know.
Well, if we look at the, if we use the numbers that we see in those charts and come from someplace closer, does it, you know, that looks like it's gonna be about $100,000.
Yeah, I mean, you know, realistically, I mean, again, the median of what we're looking at from this sample group is 90,000, so you call it 90 or 100,000, which is, you know, your assets other than your primary home.
I think if you were to look, yeah, I mean, if you were to even cut it in half to $150,000, it makes much better sense than $300,000 today. But that's just me.
So does the board have a direction? Do we wanna go ahead and put the warrant forward and reduce it to, say, $100,000, if that's a round number? Or we would want to do nothing? I think either we decide tonight, do something, or we don't, and we just throw it off the list.
Well, if it's out of whack, I think we ought to bring it in line. I would support moving it to 100,000 or 150, whatever the
I'd say
board feels.
150.
Hmm?
I'd say 150. I'd support that.
Okay. Bring it to 150,000. I'd support that.
Okay. So can we rewrite the warrant using the number 150,000, and then we'll use that to vote on the warrant when we
Yeah.
go forward?
That was.
And obviously, if somebody else has any other thoughts, let's have a number, plug it in when we get through the final vote.
So if the people say no, the voters, it
Stays at
won't be-
300,000.
Stays at
won't be
300.
Continued at 300.
Yeah.
Right.
300,000.
Right, but people need to understand
Yeah.
what they're really voting on, because
Right.
I don't think it was clear to the people before.
You're right. It
We have
was
to
not.
emphasize that.
And there was a misconception about the value of the home.
There was.
Yeah, I'm assuming the warrant can be structured where it says the exception does not include your home, and,
Right.
you know, let's put as much meat into the warrant so people know what they're voting for.
Just out of,
All right, so, was that the only one you had that you want to talk about?
I think so. I mean, right now, that's what I have. I mean, obviously, I continue to work through the list.
All right, let's move on then. Facility study.
Facility study.
And just to be clear, you're bringing this up because I know we said we weren't going to encumber any dollars,
Right,
and you wanted to just give a reference.
right. I provided a reference proposal we received last year on facility study. This was to update some of the previous work on fire station replacement. Proposal came in at $21,650. And, again, this was sort of a follow-up of conversation that came out of the Municipal Association Conference. It wouldn't be a replacement for a bid, but I wanted to give you a sense of the scope of what we're looking at. And I expect that, we may want to revisit this. And remember, this came sort of in the context of, do you want to put aside some of the available impact fee dollars for it? There is a difference of opinion right now council continues to look into that. So, the open question is, do you have to have a contract in hand? So,
Well,
when I get a
Why don't we wait and find out what
Yeah,
the
when I get a
answer
definitive
is?
answer, I'll bring it back if there's an action that's required or
Right.
not.
and just,
Then we can do that.
Just so, because I know, Brent, you weren't here, but you brought forward a suggestion to encumber some impact fees, because the building committee that's been formed and we're trying to get started and get kicked off is going to need to do something in the next year to try to come back with some data that we can sell to the people and plans. That will cost something. Today, there's no funding for it. And so Jason's idea, and I thought it was a good idea, was can we use some impact fees to do that? And I guess we're, again, we're questioning whether or not we can encumber impact fees or not. But that's what that's all about. So you'll bring it, once we get a good number, we'll go forward with that, see what we're gonna do. All right, moving on to, let's see, impact fee update.
Or how about, speaking of impact fee unclaimed refunds, and then I'll move on to impact fee update.
Yep.
We are down to only one unclaimed impact fee refund. Karen did some clever sleuthing on one of the larger ones we had that had a few payments. This is why I had said when we talked about this last year, wait. We finally found the person, or actually Karen finally found the person by kind of backing through the registry. We have a couple clues on the one remaining one. If those don't turn up the right party that can claim it, we'll send the documentation to council for court disbursement. So, you actually, it should be, it was probably somewhere in the pile of this week's accounts payable. We found a fairly sizable one to give back.
I will tell you that she's pulling her hair out going through these impact fees and just trying to find ownership to get all the way back to where you need to go.
Yeah, I mean, she did a really good job tracking that one down. We have a number of fees starting to go back, so the volume of work will be picking up there, so.
Okay.
Impact fee update. We received a letter from the planning board, which I have attached and shared. They held their hearing in September to update, to review updates to various impact fees. They've presented a fee schedule for public capital facilities, public school capital facilities, and a road system schedule. They proposed no changes to the school and road schedules, and updating the town hall, administration, police, recreation, and library-based fees is shown on the table. They've also noted that the next phase of their impact fee update, which will not be completed to 2014, this will be able to kind of reset the rates for town hall administration, road, school, and the like.
Why would they not recommend changes to the school? If the town's not growing, why do we need to collect impact fees for the school? I mean,
Right, I mean,
other parts of this town are suffering because we've not been able to accommodate growth. But as I see it, the school is giving back a lot of money, right, for not being able to even execute on the plan. And two, the school is not, our student population is not growing.
well, you may
Am I asking a
recall,
silly question?
you may recall I think it was last year or maybe the year before, they actually recommended suspending the collection of the school fee for that very rationale. And it was the request of the Board of Selectmen back that they continue to charge the school fee. So, I mean, they've come back and they have not applied any cost escalator to the school fee, but they're recommending,
To continue collecting.
based on the guidance they had from board previously.
How much money have we returned for that school-related?
Hold on a second.
To me, I would correct it to be some large number, but I think I remember why we did not vote to stop, because I think the feeling was, at least my feeling was, don't stop it, just reduce it at some point, and the decision was not to reduce it, but,
The reason, as I recollect it, was because people said, well, sooner or later, we're gonna need a new school anyway, so.
I don't foresee a new school there.
yeah, I mean, I heard somewhere along, I don't know if it, well, I'm not gonna get into school
We've,
politics.
we've refunded $222,990.05 in
From schools.
elementary impact fees.
And
you
if there was
know,
any place we needed a school, it would be elementary, so
Right.
I just don't see any other, again, I'm not on the school board, and I have this, my own personal opinion.
I think we might have actually sent back, let me see if we've done any,
Okay.
no, not yet there.
So they're gonna come forward with,
Their recommendation is in there.
no, I know, but they're coming forward with zoning changes too?
They're looking at potential zoning changes for 2014, part of which is to combine the, right now, the impact fees are in two separate ordinances to try to put them into one coherent package. They did point out while they're contemplating doing that, they may postpone it a year if they hear back from their consultant that there are some other housekeeping changes to be made rather than
Okay.
make changes and then go back the following year and make more changes.
All right. Anything else regarding impact fees or any questions?
The Board of Selectmen has to vote their recommendation.
Is this their formal recommendation now for us to vote on, or are they gonna come here and present it to us?
This is their recommendation. If you'd like them to come, I can schedule them to come. The short answer again, they're proposing no changes for school and road schedule and updating the town hall administration, fire, police, recreation, library base fees. And I think all of those are displayed on the
Yeah.
fee schedules provided.
So Frank, as the liaison or officiata member, did you have any concerns with the change?
No.
Then I'll take a motion if there is to be one.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen adopts the recommended impact fees from the planning board. What is their date?
October 4th, 2013.
Contained in the October 4th, 2013.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bork, closely by Mrs. Jewett. Further discussion? Deb, can you just make a note that Brent stepped out, so he won't be part of that vote? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 4-0-0.
When we talk about having money put in for building plans and then the requirements of what the fire department needs for a fire station and all, I was talking to several people and they said, well, we don't have to build a new police station, do we? And I said, I don't know. And I said, I really don't know, but I think that I would rather see money built, add to this building than all the money that we have put in there between all the telephones, computers and everything else. I would rather have just build a standalone fire station and get what they need, personally. I can't see saying we need, I don't think the town clerk's office needs more space. I think that we need storage, that's what we need, but we don't have to build an elaborate building for that.
Noted. Okay. Moving on to July health insurance renewal.
Done.
Yeah, we already talked about it. Cool.
Yep.
Well, I guess you already covered. So other items, there were no other items. Selectmen reports. Well, let's start with Nightmare New England. Let me just get my notes here. So this board, I believe every member of the board received a phone call from a citizen, potentially maybe more than one citizen, regarding mainly what wrapped around traffic concerns. I got an email from Selectman Byron regarding a conversation he had with the citizen. I called the citizen that evening, and I've had a couple of conversations with him since then. I actually owe him a follow-up call after this meeting to discuss what we're going to do or what we can and cannot do. A couple of areas of concern that was highlighted was, the bright lights near the parking lots. Concern is night blindness as cars are approaching the event and exiting the event. The speed limit, there is no posted slowness now. It's just it's the consistent speed limit across 3A. The police cruiser lights, they're adding to the night blindness. If anyone ever gets up on a police cruiser with lights going on, yes, there is night blindness there. The parking lot for the event is defined as haphazard. Really, the concern was not about the official parking. It was really more wrapped around the pop-up parking that goes on around there, where people who own property or front yard, they're bringing cars in and parking them all over the place. He had some concerns about the person doing traffic control. I will say that person that is doing traffic control is a certified traffic controller, if that's how you call them. They're a flagger.
Is this the same gentleman that may have called all of us?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yep. There's some issue, he was concerned that we can shut the event down and not, and we've did some research on that. Really, as I understand it, and what I've determined from talking to the chief and town administrator and a few other folks, there's not, the program or the event is kind of permitted by the state. He did a lot of things around 3A to accommodate the parking issues, the crosswalks. He addressed all the concerns of the state, why the state allowed him to open back up again. I did talk to the chief about, can we do something different with the cruiser lights and tone them down? Unfortunately, those cars don't have variable lights. It's not there. Those cars are put in their places as kind of visual cues to have people slow down. But it is dark there. And the other thing that's adding to it is when they light up the parking lot, which is right off adjacent 3A, that light is flooding into it. And there was some adjustments that were going to be made to the lights. Not sure how successful that was. The concern about people not using the crosswalk and jumping out in the traffic. Again, it's my understanding that Mel's, when they organized, they did a lot of snow fencing to try to control people's walking, to walk them all down to that one crosswalk that is controlled. In addition, I also know that they also put in a turnaround for people picking up people, so they would stop the kind of the parking that was happening on the edge of the road, waiting for people to come out of the park. So they certainly made some adjustments. It didn't feel like there was anything we can do at all this year, and this board may have a different opinion, and I'd welcome any suggestions, but as far as the pop-up parking, I think we probably could do something there. I mean, we can potentially think about, and the thought was, can we construct an ordinance that we can then, enforce next year so it doesn't occur? There was a thought about having the owners of the Spooky World to approach those folks and kind of, incentivize them not to do it, but, I don't know if we can do that. I don't think we can't, it didn't feel like we could make them do that. The chief of police was talking to the district coordinator or district manager of the area to see what we can do as far as at least posting slow down or maybe change the speed limit, but, some kind of signage to kind of help control the speed. I didn't hear back from the chief yet what the results in that was, because I guess we couldn't do anything. We have no authority to change the speed limit. We have no real authority to do anything other than what we're doing today.
Mr. Chairman, I shared with the person that, while I recognize that there certainly could be an issue there to the unsuspecting driver, I personally feel that these people have gone out of their way to address the concerns, I think, of the town. They're a good neighbor. They're a good provider of services to the town. They're a tax-paying business. I don't want to inhibit commercial entity. This happens once a year. I know when I drive down through there, I know that I have to go slow. You know, you're going to have people there. That's, unfortunately, it's probably not expected, but it's no different than, you know, going down Elm Street when the Verizon Wireless Arena lets out. I know that it's a totally different situation, but you need to exercise extreme caution down there, and I know that when I drive down through. I don't want to inhibit their operation. I think it's of value to the town. Again, it only happens 2 months a year. And I think that whatever the chief can do to address any of the safety issues, I think that the town has gone the extra mile in trying to mitigate these problems, so.
Yeah, and I think the owners of the facility have done a lot this year also. Is there more? You know, again, as I understand it, the state is the one that says, yep, you can do this, you gotta do this,
Right.
you can do that. I mean, I've entertained any thoughts from any member of anything else we can do, other barring an ordinance that could somehow control these pop-up parking lots. We don't have an ordinance today, we don't have anything that says we can stop it today, so we have no grounds to, as far as I know, to change any of the behavior this year.
I think the biggest thing, and I think you touched on it with the chief, is letting the owners, you know, making them aware that people are calling us, you know. I think the major concern is the safety aspect of it. I know myself, like you, when you're traveling through there, we go slow. We go slow because we are the residents of the town. If you look in the parking lot over there, there's a lot of Massachusetts plates.
There's a lot.
Those people have no idea, you know, where the road bends or anything like that, so. Again, maybe if we did put some signs
Right, I
there
was gonna
that
say, maybe
said
one
slow.
of the signboards on each end, caution, you know, people in the road or something.
Yeah, and I think we're still waiting for whether or not we can actually put one out there without
Sure.
the state's approval. But
And knowing, you know, the owners of it, I think, you know, if they're made aware of it, I do truly believe that they will address it because,
Yeah.
you know, I just, again, making them aware of it, I'm sure they will address it and hopefully, you know, moving forward, things improve.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, my concern is that, you know, they're only open for another
right.
Week, isn't it?
week. I think their official days, they close on Sunday, I think. But barring that, I mean, any other suggestions about anything, any actions we should take as a board? Is there a desire to entertain an ordinance for around the pop-up parking lots? And we
I
can-
think let it go for the. I think we should take our lead from the suggestions from the police chief, and I think,
He'd be the one to do it.
I think
He's
he would be
chief.
the one
He's
to
responsible.
request it if he felt the need, that there was an issue there.
I don't know if there's any, you know, we got code enforcement, right? Which is
Yeah,
bad,
there's no
but-
code, I went down that.
No, but.
It's a
but
police
what-
issue, it's not a code
Well, what
enforcement.
I was gonna say is, you know, whether it's the police chief or whether it's Kevin or whatever, again, you know, we make the owners aware. Also, just stop by those houses of the people who are parking cars and say, hey, listen, there's been some concerns from people, residents, whatever it may be, and just let them know. People parking there, can you guide them this way, you know, and
Well,
I
but the
think if
thing,
we do
people are
that, I think
parking
the
there.
problem's gonna go
If you
away.
think about it, as you approach the event, you see these pop-up park, and they're charging $10 when the event parking is $5, and it's a donation, it's not even a,
Right,
right?
right.
So, they're doing it to make money, and again, that's the American way, I'm not gonna change that. Having us step up and go, hey, by the way, there's been some complaints, I don't see that gonna change their behavior.
No, what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, if something does happen and God forbid, you know, they decide to move out of town, you know what I mean? They can look forward to that every year. So if they're not gonna adapt to the changes that we ask them to make, at some point, people may stop coming, and then that revenue that they're generating in that month ain't gonna be there. So I just truly believe if you just approach people and just say, hey, listen, there's some concerns, I bet you they would address the concerns.
Well, I know the owners of the
There's only a
event-
couple houses that do it,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I know the event owners would definitely have, will continue to make improvements to continue to make that event
Mhm.
more efficient, so.
I mean,
I think the,
I know
Well
I wouldn't
said.
want to live any closer. I hear them at my house, and I'm quite a ways from them. And all summer long. And I hear the woman telling them, you know, do this, do this. And I'm thinking, boy, am I glad I don't live any closer. Oh,
Oh, from the
and I know
racetrack,
that.
yeah.
The challenge is trying to figure out, you know, can we expand the warning? You know, the blue lights are intended as a warning. But, you know, do we reinforce that with a watch for pedestrians? Because, you know, I mean, it's the challenge that we have it, you know, like a month or two a year on 3A. But, you know, I mean, in a downtown, you have it all the time. You provide crosswalks, you know. When I used to have a downtown, I'd get the earful from people complaining about jaywalkers. You know, you can control and structure and channelize and guide people as much as you can. You can't control for the person that decides they want to dash across the street.
Right.
And that's where your biggest exposure is on all of this, you
This
know.
can
I mean,
happen anywhere.
and so, you know,
Absolutely it
you know, how do you provide reasonable opportunity for drivers to be aware of it, and, you know, try to limit as much as possible the temptation to do that. But I mean, unless you put walls on both sides of the road to allow people
We don't
only out at one
overregulate.
spot,
No.
you know.
And I agree with you, and that's why I think just, you know, just simple, you know, it's been brought to our attention, you know?
Yeah, and I think the owners of Mel are aware of those concerns. Like I said, going to the individual pop-up parking lots that are not associated with Mel's, I'm just not sure how that's gonna change anything. But,
It doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I mean, we can, you know, ideally, maybe one way to approach this is ask Kevin to stop by and see those owners,
Yeah.
and just make a note to say, hey, guys, just so you're aware, we are getting complaints about the traffic and the things that happen around these areas, and see how that does.
And I don't think the problem's on the left side, it's the problem on the one where they're parking up towards, who's it?
Oh, the-
P&G Pride, you know, because that's where they're darting across the street.
Yeah,
Because on the left,
coming
when
from
you're
the
going
north,
up there,
I
you're
come
on
from
the
the
same
north
side
side,
of, the same side of it, right?
Right.
yeah, like I said, I think, and there's plenty of parking, this is the other thing, the event itself has plenty of parking. If you look at the cornfield in the back, it's 9 times out of it's empty. People are approaching the event and going, oh, parking, and pulling off, and they're paying double the price, and the money's going into, and again, I'm not begrudging anybody from doing it, but it's not going to the reason for those parking lots, right? So, all right, anybody else have anything, any suggestions for me? You know, I'm gonna give him a call back and let him know we talked, but based on my
We're
last
all set.
update to him,
What
based on
will
my
the
last
state
update, based on my last update to him, nothing really has changed.
What will the state allow on that we could
I think,
do?
I think the state allows us to do anything as long as we ask. We just gotta ask.
I still think we should leave that road to the police chief.
The chief is definitely, he's aware of it. We sat down and talked to him.
Okay.
I met with him the Monday after Frank forwarded me the notes that he took from his call. And I had a brief conversation with the gentleman that evening, the night before, and we talked about what we can do. There's certain things we could do, certain things that it would take a little time to get done, and it's maybe too late to do it this year. I don't want to see the cruises marked left. I don't want the lights turned off. You know, there's no way to turn them down because those are the old bars that they're not adjustable. I thought,
Just slow down.
yeah, I thought about just putting up one of those speed
That's all.
radars, signs, slow it down. As soon as you see that, one slows down, right?
Let them handle it.
So,
Can they lower the speed for just the time being? Probably not.
well, you have to post it, and I think making the visual alert that
Well,
something's
look
going
what
on
happened
ahead.
when the toll booths posted change the speed limit. They were told they can't do that, and that's why our toll booths have 25-mile-an-hour speed limits going through them. Because you cannot change that without
Yeah,
legislation, I guess. And
yeah, I don't know how that works.
they went from 10 to 15 to 25 because they did it incorrectly.
All right. Anything else on this topic? All right, we're still on selectmen reports. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Went to a meeting for a rec committee, just to, we're in plans for Winterfest this year. It's gonna be a 3-day event, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. No final details as far as what we're doing, but hopefully have that sometime soon. And
Do you know about when?
it's gonna be in February.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a way off.
Yeah.
It was a good event last year.
Yeah,
They had a
there's
real
some good
turnout.
ideas that are being tossed around, and it's just a matter of if we can line the ideas up or not, but anyway, that's in the works.
Excellent.
Anything else?
No, I went to budget committee, but that was 2 weeks ago. I'm sure Jason filled you in. Had a good meeting.
Okay. Frank, anything?
No.
Mrs. Jewett?
I think we're going to do cleanup of 3A, and I think it's a good idea to wait until after this spooky world thing is over, because you certainly get a lot of trash from that. Oh, boy. It's a crime. I picked up a bag a week ago Sunday on my way to church and of trash right in the field at the end of Robin Avenue. And sure enough, again, Saturday night when I was going out, it was another bag I picked up trash.
Okay. Just a reminder that Halloween is Thursday, October 31st. The official start and finish is 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I did get a question about a rain date on the website, but we're not, I don't think there's any rain for
We don't do
there's no,
that.
there's no rain
Well,
that I
there
see in the
is.
forecast, but we don't
Yeah,
typically do
there
it.
is.
Careful, the
There's
last 2 years at this time
I
of the
know.
year, we were without
We canceled
power,
it one year,
so.
didn't we? Yeah, we don't want that. I still have my bike out, I don't want to put it
There,
away.
there are showers
Hey,
predicted, but we've
Isn't
never.
it, isn't it supposed to be Thursday? It's supposed to be like 67 or 78 degrees out or
That's
something?
what I
No,
thought.
well, Friday before it dives again.
Yeah.
It's supposed to have showers Thursday night and into Friday.
All right, let's see. There was no items moved from consent. We covered 2 of the items in the other business. First up is Frank asked for the review around the county prisoners and how that worked out.
Yep.
and what work we got done.
The week that they were here, we were blessed with good weather all week, so they devoted almost all of their time to cleanup of facilities and grounds down at the Dara Park. If you've noticed that you can actually see the park from the road now. They did a lot of cleanup there. They actually did some of the exterior painting on the back where we had some things repointed. They went underneath, we had a couple that went underneath Town Hall and rehung some of the insulation under the floor.
Trust me, I know.
So, it was
Productive week.
it was a good, productive week for them.
Do we have them scheduled to come back in again?
We
or-
have them scheduled to come back in again in November, middle of November. They'll primarily be working with the road agent at that point.
Work
Or
away.
some-
With the road agent.
With the road agent.
Doing
For some,
what?
mainly some brush clearing, and that, we still have on some roadsides. And we are also lining up, because the problem is we get them for a week and we can't control what the week will be. So if it's, if it's inclement weather outdoors, we are also lining up some of the interior work and painting that would need to be done in Town Hall as our indoor project for them.
Okay, Frank,
The
anything?
$1,000, Jason, includes how many people, or does we set the number of people?
No, it's their crew that they have available.
I'm just trying to understand how the county charges, that's all.
It's a flat rate.
Right, but I was just wondering if you said, give me 10 people, you get 10, or give me 2 people, you get 2, and you still get charged 1,000.
Yeah, it's a flat rate for whoever they have sort of in the rotation. I think I want to say we had
One
7
guard,
or
right?
8.
It's one guard and one van, right?
Yeah,
If it
it's-
was
My
probably more than
understanding
one
is the
guard.
cost is for the guards.
Yeah,
That's my understanding too.
yeah. I want to say we had 6, 7, 8 people there.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Next item was, if we're okay with this, next item was inspection failure for the highway truck. Which highway truck was it?
International.
Oh,
The orange one?
yeah, it
When we got
it had a tie rod end that the major thing was a tie rod end that needed to be replaced. There were some incidental pieces with a light, a rear light that needed to be replaced. So,
We don't need no stinking lights.
yeah, so it was, should be fully complete now. It came back through, Jack and Les did the repairs needed last week rather than farming it all out. So I think they had an estimate of something like $1,700 to do the work, and, you know, they did it themselves for $500 worth of parts.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding that?
You're going to announce Kelly Ayotte, Senator?
No, it's not her. Please don't get people confused. It's only, there will be a staff member from Senator Ayotte's
I realize
office
that.
doing office hours here tomorrow from 1 to 2. If anybody has anything that requires the
Yeah.
senator's staff assistance in this room. And on Friday, a staff member from Representative Custer's office will be here from 2 to 4. So,
Okay. Any other business before we go, any other business before we go into non-public?
yeah, I see that comment.
Okay. Hearing no other business, we're gonna go into non-public as, under, what?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a
I want to confirm that, you know, I've given you guys the outline. If you're comfortable with the premise of going into non-public.
I don't have a problem either way. I
Yeah.
can do it in public if you want.
So I just want to,
I would rather go to non-public, come out and say we just did this if we agree it should be a public.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to go into non-public session per RSA 91A
Colon 3, 2C.
2C.
Yep, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person or other member of the public body itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. Yada, yada, yada. Exemption shall extend to any application for assistance, tax abatement, waiver or fee, waiver of fee, fine, or levy.
That's fine.
Yeah. All right, I have a motion to go into non-public. Roll call vote.
Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second it.
I second
No,
it.
Mrs. Jewett seconded it.
Okay.
Roll call vote. Mr. Bork,
I agree, yeah.
Mr. Brent,
Yes.
Mr. Lemire, sorry. Mr. Byron,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Brunel, yes. We'll be in non-public. We'll come out of non-public just to adjourn. So we'll say goodnight, and remember, Halloween trick-or-treating is on October 31st, 6 to 8 o'clock.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
Here's my second.
Be careful.